I used to think that being beautiful meant I'd sail through life and always get whatever I wanted. Yeah, I know this sounds dumb, but back in high school, life was so much easier down to my good looks. All it took was a flutter of my eyelashes, and the nerds would do my homework for me. And girls invited me to their parties because they knew me going meant the cute boys would go too. It was nice having attention from other boys, but I was only interested in my boyfriend, Logan. He was a senior, and he was just perfect. He was so handsome, super smart, and a sports pro. There was one teeny tiny problem. I sucked at studying. It was just so boring. But to be honest, it didn't matter anyways, as I was beautiful. And being beautiful was enough. Besides, I did have one passion. I love singing and composing music. I don't publicize them or anything, but I'm not gonna lie, they were quite catchy. We had one long summer together before Logan went off to college. So I decided to surprise him with a love song I'd written for him. I showed up at his house with my guitar, ready to play it to him, but before I could start it, he said, "Ailey, I want to break up." What? Why? I spluttered out. "I've met someone else. She isn't as beautiful as you, but she's smarter. We're going to study at Stanford together. Let's face it, a place like that's way out of your reach." I couldn't believe what I just heard. I grabbed his arm and begged him to give our love another chance, but he just walked away. During the next few days, I kept calling and texting him, but he ghosted me completely. Feeling desperate, I searched for his girlfriend's info on social media and found out her name was Jolie, and she was one of the top students of another high school in the city. And OMG, how could he fall in love with such an ugly girl? Oh, turns out Logan wanted a smart girl, huh? So if I got into this college, then he would take me back, right? I mean, surely he'd pick a smart and beautiful girl over a smart, ugly one. That settled it. I was going to work my butt off for my senior year to get into Stanford. Geez, studying was way harder than I anticipated. It didn't help that I had loads of catching up to do. And why did Logan have to study economics? All the numbers and graphs made me feel super dizzy. I didn't know where to start. Everything was new to me, so I had to ask a couple of my nerdy admirers to help me out. At first, they actually laughed at me as they thought I was kidding. But when they realized I was being deadly serious, they handed me some books and tried explaining stuff to me. I even spent my break times in the library. Ugh, why was it like a maze in there? I swear I got lost and couldn't find my way out for at least an hour. One time, I even fell asleep in the library, and some dude thought it was funny to take a picture. And for days after that, everyone at school passed around the photo of me drooling on a pile of books. Ew! But despite those hardships, I couldn't give up. I even stuck a photo of Logan to my wall to remind me of my goal. I stopped hanging out with my friends and didn't go to any more parties. And I even missed prom to study. Needless to say, my friends really thought that I was insane or something. Even my mom was so worried that she wanted to take me to the hospital to be checked over. OMG! How ridiculous! Stop overreacting, people! Have you never seen a hardworking, beautiful girl before? And then something crazy happened. I received my letter from Stanford, and OMG, guess what? I got in! I couldn't believe it, and neither did my family and friends. Everyone was so surprised and happy for me. To be honest, giving up on music was a pity, but studying music wouldn't help me get Logan back, and this would. I was going to be at the same college as him, studying the same course, albeit a year behind. What could possibly go wrong? So, I moved to college and ended up with the geekiest roommate ever. She actually plastered math equations onto the walls. Ugh, what a weird girl. Moreover, studying here was even more boring than in high school. Much more. One time during a macroeconomics class, yep, it's as boring as it sounds, I had my earbuds in and was thinking up song lyrics when someone knocked on my desk. How dare they interrupt my creative flow? so I blurted out, "1 second, I'm writing," while my eyes were still on my notebook. Then I looked up to see Professor Bentley standing there. He snatched my notebook, saw my lyrics, then told me, "Get out at once and never come back." Whatever, I was sick of this snooze-inducing subject anyway. Seriously, watching paint dry would have been more fun. I stormed out of there, ranting to myself about how I hated his lame class, when I turned a corner and saw Logan holding hands with his ugly girlfriend. Ugh! Why now? Logan stared at me like he'd seen a ghost, then asked, "Haley, what are you doing here?" I forced a smile at him, but before I could say anything, his girlfriend spoke out. "Oh, you're Ailey, my boyfriend's infamous stalker? Let me guess, Professor Bentley kicked you out? Figures, as he's allergic to brainless girls." Then she dragged Logan away. How dare she mock me? I was far too beautiful to be spoken to like that by the likes of her. I was going to show her. I'd soon win back my man. I went back to my room and listed some ideas. I could buy him a gift. Nah, too obvious. Or I could tag him in pictures of us together. Nah, too desperate. I know. I should stick to what I'm good at. In my case, that's music. Besides, how romantic would me singing a love song to him be? He wouldn't be able to resist. Some days later, I took my guitar out into the yard. A crowd began to gather around me, so I said, "I wrote this song for my ex, Logan. Just wanted to say that I love you so much. Will you be my boyfriend again?" Everyone around me cheered, and it made me even more excited, and I started singing. After I finished my song, Logan and Jolie appeared. He looked awkward, and she looked so mad, I thought steam might come out of her ears. Whatever. I didn't care about her. I shimmied over to them, then touched his shoulder. "Honey, I worked so hard to get into the same college as you. Now, will you come back to me?" Then, to my surprise, he angrily said, "Ailey, please stop. We're over. You're crazy. All of this is crazy. Now, please, leave me alone." I stood there gobsmacked as he took Jolie's hand and they walked off. I could hear the crowd whispering about me. I felt like my world was falling down. I was moping on my bed, daydreaming about happier days with Logan, when my roommate threw her phone onto my bed and said, "You might want to see this." I looked at it. What? It was me. Someone had filmed my failed serenade attempt, and now I'd gone viral. But the majority of the comments were super supportive, saying I had an awesome voice. After that, everyone in college knew my name. Okay, so all the attention felt good. Due to popular demand, I ended up releasing my song. Even the student council of the college invited me to join a performance at the school celebration. My college life just got better, as I was doing what I loved, and I made new friends. But I felt far from ecstatic, as I hated my course, and I still hadn't won Logan back. One evening, while I was stretching on the couch and thinking about Logan, a text arrived. It was from a strange number. They told me to hurry over to the dorm yard, as there was something wrong with Logan. There was a huge crowd gathered there. Oh no, this must be serious. Frantically, I pushed through them, and that's when I saw Logan standing there with his back to me, in the middle of a candle heart shape. He must have sent me the message. I shakily walked toward him, and then softly called his name. He turned around, got on one knee, but his face was still fixed on the ground. Then, to my surprise, he said, "I really love you and want to be a part of your life. Will you marry me, Jolie?" Oh. Wait, what? Jolie? I shouted. He looked up at me and loudly said, "Ailey, what are you doing here?" Huh? What was going on? I looked back, and that's when I saw that some of their friends were standing behind me with some affectionate photos of Jolie and Logan, and also banners saying, "Will you marry me, Jolie?" Okay, so this clearly wasn't for me. Suddenly, Jolie appeared, and in a mocking voice said, "First you stalk my boyfriend, and now you ruin our proposal? Get real! He doesn't want you." Before I could say anything, Logan yelled at me. Oh, Ailey, please stop it. I'm begging you. Stop being so obsessed. It makes me sick. I don't love you anymore. And I'm never going to want you back. I stood there totally mortified. I heard the crowd jeering at me and taking photos. I quickly ran away with tears streaming down my face. I angrily dialed back the phone number that had sent me the message, but it was blocked. This must have been someone's idea of a sick joke. A week later, my phone buzzed. What? It was from Logan. I quickly opened the message. Hi, Ailey. Look, I found out that Jolie sent you the message to meet at the yard. My friend let slip to her about the proposal, so she came up with that prank to embarrass you. Your behavior made her feel very insecure, and although it was wrong what she did, you brought it on yourself. Please move on and find happiness, as this isn't you. Your actions have made you ugly, and you've lost yourself. I burst into tears because I knew he was right. I gave up on my passion and applied for a course I had no interest in, and all for this guy that still didn't choose me. Now it was time to give up on Logan and this college. After all, neither were right for me. I might be beautiful, but looks alone don't buy someone's love. There's so much more to it than that. For now, I've moved back home, but I'm going to put my heart and soul into my music, then apply to a music school majoring in composition, because I finally realized that it isn't Logan who will make me happy. It's my passion.
Nina, why are you just my cousin and not my mommy? Claudia peered up at me with curious eyes. I knew where this had come from, as the topic of the week at kindergarten was family. Claudia's innocent words made me squirm with guilt. Was I a bad person? I'd been asking myself this daily for the last 4 years. Yep, the little girl next to me wasn't my daughter. I stole her from her real dad and have been raising her single-handedly ever since. It all started with my Uncle Oliver, who is a successful businessman and a super loving person. I owe a lot to him and to my grandma, as they're the ones who raised me after my parents died in a car crash when I was just a little girl. My uncle had been doing a great job filling up the missing father figure in my life. But he also wanted a biological child of his own, which was quite a tricky problem to an asexual man like him. One evening, I just got in from hanging out with my friends when I saw him sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. I asked, "Uncle, what's up?" He looked at me with swollen red eyes, sighed, then said, "Nina, it's silly, really. It's just my birthday is next month, and I don't have the one thing I want the most in the world." I pulled him into a hug and comforted him. I knew he's still longing for a kid, and I wanted to help him. So, together, we looked into the surrogacy process. My uncle was so excited, and he did all the paperwork to buy a donor egg. Now, all he needed was a surrogate mother. So he went through his local surrogacy agency, and they presented him with 5 potential surrogate profiles. I swear he must have reread each of them about 100 times. But he eventually chose one, a woman called Kathy. On paper, Kathy sounded perfect. She was a 31-year-old who already had a healthy little boy called Robbie. A contract was drawn up. All Kathy's medical care would be paid for, and she'd also receive a pretty large sum of money. Then, when the baby was 1 week old, my uncle would raise them alone. This all sounds perfect, huh? Well, it soon took a turn for the worst. Once Kathy fell pregnant, Uncle Oliver wanted to be around her more so he could bond with the baby. One time I walked into the lounge to classical music playing, and my uncle pressing his head to Kathy's belly to see if the baby could hear the music. Soon coming home to find Kathy there became the norm for me. At first I didn't mind, as she was always really sweet to me, and we even had small talks from time to time. But then, one morning when I was heading downstairs to go to work, I spotted her standing in the yard helping my grandma water the flowers. I was about to walk over to greet them, then I heard her say, "Oliver is such a lovely man, but he's so busy. I worry he'll find it all a bit too much juggling a newborn and work." Then Grandma said, "Don't worry, sweetie, as he'll have Nina and me around to help." But Nina is so young. and she has her own life to lead. She's always out at a party or with some boy, and you can't be expected to take care for a baby, not at your age. I just don't want a stranger caring for my baby, not when I could help out." What? Her sweet as sugar behavior was all an act, wasn't it? How dare she try and manipulate my lovely grandma? A few days later, I went down to dinner to see Kathy sitting there. She smiled at me and asked me about my day. I wasn't buying her overly nice act, but I went along with it anyway. At one point, she suddenly took her phone out, then her smile turned into a frown. "Oh, no. Robbie has a fever. I better go to him." She immediately pulled back her chair and stood up. "You know how it is. Only a mother's love can make a little one feel better." Then she left. Kathy's poisonous words had definitely got to Grandma, as she showed concern for Robbie and let out a gentle smile as her eyes followed Kathy's steps. And that was only the beginning. Kathy's game playing continued as a few days later, she showed up on our doorstep in tears. Then she came out with some story about how the venue for Robbie's birthday party had canceled and they refused to refund her. Like clockwork, my uncle told her she could have the party at ours and that he'd cover the costs. On the day of the party, I saw Kathy pass my uncle all of the receipts for the bouncy castle, magician, catering, etc. She gently pat her tummy and grinned. "You'll be such a wonderful father. You know, we could always have another one after this. For free, of course." Then, later on, I saw her whispering something to Robbie. Then the next minute, he ran over to my uncle. He hugged his legs and said, "Thank you for the party, Daddy." Then Kathy hurried over to him, ruffled his hair, and said, "Oh, honey, he's not your daddy, but it'd be nice, wouldn't it, to all live here together with the baby?" Enough was enough, so that night I confronted my uncle and grandma about it. I don't have a good feeling about Kathy. I think she's trying to break the contract. My uncle sighed, then said, "I know." Then Grandma added, "Kathy's right, though. Oliver can't do this alone. You're too young and I'm too old. So it makes sense for Kathy to stick around and help. Still better than having some random stranger around, right?" "I can help out," I raised my voice. "Rather me than her. I don't trust her." Grandma shook her head. "But she's the mother. She's carrying the baby. Their bond is undeniable. I know what it's like to lose people I love. Kathy will break this baby's heart. I'm sure of it. She's only out for herself." My face turned red as I raised my voice. My uncle remained silent. Then he just sighed and walked out of the room. I ran after him and pulled him back. "Uncle, you made your choice right from the beginning. Why change it now?" He replied with his eyes glued to the ground. "Your grandma has a point." "What?" My voice was up to high pitch. "Stop letting that witch Kathy manipulate you." He shook his head, then walked away. Oh my God. They were being controlled like puppets. This needed to stop. So I decided to confront Kathy about it. My chance arrived the next day. She was helping to cook dinner, so I said to her, "I know what you're up to. You just want an easy life without any money worries. That's why you're manipulating them. But you can't fool me." She stopped chopping the carrots, then looked at me. "Is that so? The thing is, Nina, I always get what I want." She gave me an evil smirk. Then she slammed the knife into the carrot with such ferocity that I flinched. It was official. Kathy was crazy, but I didn't have any proof. So basically, there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. As expected, the craziness continued into the next day. I went to Grandma's room and saw her looking flustered as she searched through her bedside drawer. I, again, couldn't find my pills, and that they kept on showing up in strange places. She seemed really worried that she was losing her mind. Later on, when we were all eating dinner, Kathy went to the fridge, and surprise, surprise, guess what she found there? Yep, Grandma's pills. Obviously, Kathy had put them there. Then she walked over to Grandma, rubbed her shoulder, concernedly said, "I should have taken care of you more. We should have you checked by the doctor as soon as possible. Age can be so cruel on the mind, and you don't want to be forgettable around the baby. After that, Grandma seemed totally convinced that she was too old to take care for a baby, even after the doctor told her she was fine. Furthermore, she was adamant that Kathy should move in to help out. Ugh! What a snake Kathy was! A month later, the baby was born. A girl. My uncle named her Claudia, after my mom. We all cried happy tears and welcomed her into our family. Kathy got her wish, and both her and Robbie moved into our house. One morning I came downstairs to see Kathy holding the baby. In front of her was the ripped-up contract. I told her to leave, and she smirked and said, "You're a smart girl, Nina, but you're no match for me. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home now, so get used to it." I knew there was no point telling my uncle and grandma about this. I couldn't let this woman destroy my family. She was dangerous. She could end up hurting everyone. She'd never stop until she got what she wanted, and there's no way I could let that happen. So, when Kathy was in the bathroom, I picked Claudia up, and before I could stop myself, I was fleeing from the house and out of their lives. I moved to a new town and got a new job. It was only meant to be temporary, but I guess I was too selfish and afraid to go back. I'd always been truthful with Claudia about one thing, that I was her cousin, not her mom. So, when Claudia said the words, "Nina, why are you just my cousin and not my mommy?" I felt so guilty. She was missing out on a relationship with her father because of me. Yes, I'd wanted my family to get out of Kathy's trap, but what I did wasn't fair to my uncle. I knew that now. I had no right taking his daughter away from him for 4 years. I felt so awful. Thinking about the distress I must have caused him and Grandma, the guilt was eating me up, and I knew I couldn't carry on like this anymore. So I called up an old family friend and asked him to approach my uncle. Later that day, my friend got back to me with a message from him. "Kathy's gone, and she won't be coming back. You were right about her. Of course. She was only after my money. After you left, she didn't seem to care about Claudia at all, and she threatened to go to the cops and report you unless I paid her off. Please, just come back to me and Grandma. We sure aren't happy with what you did, but we know you had good intentions. We love you, and we just want our girls back home." Tears streamed down my face. They'd found it in their hearts to forgive me. Running away had never been the answer, even if I'd done it with good intentions. It was time to stop running. It was time to go home. So I peered down at the little girl who reminded me so much of my uncle. "Claudia?" I took her hand. "Are you ready to go home to Daddy?"
The buzzing of my phone woke me up. Ugh, what was this? It's 6 a.m. for Christ's sakes. "Go away," I slurred at my phone, trying to reach my arm over to shut it up. The buzzing stopped briefly, but then started up again, so I answered it with a frustrated, "Yeah." My girlfriend Nayla replied, "Samuel, my roomies are going away for the night, so hurry over and bring me a big kiss." Well, that sure got my attention. I sat upright and replied, "Sure, babe, I'll shower then come right over." "Ooh, I love it when you freshen up for me," she giggled. Anything for my girl. I was so excited that I whooped and fist-punched the air, then rushed out of bed to go get ready. Oh, how naive and unsuspecting I was. Guys, never in a million years could I have imagined the humiliating situation I was about to step into. Ah, my sweet Nayla, my high school sweetheart and the love of my life. The problem was that we now went to different colleges, but it wasn't just 3 cities separating us, you see. She lives in a female-only hostel. Yeah, you heard me right. It's female-only, and there are some pretty strict rules in place. The main one being, guys are only allowed to visit on weekdays between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. What a bummer. If this wasn't bad enough, Nayla's 2 roommates, Phoebe and Luna, were man-hating vultures. Shudder. Phoebe hated men because they'd cheated her out of money not once, but twice. As for Luna, well, I don't really know what her problem with guys was. I think she just likes copying Phoebe. So you see, that's the reason why I never stepped foot in there, not even during visiting hours. But now they were away. I was free to visit my girl without fear of them circling me with their death stares. I showed up smelling of my fave aftershave, and with a box of candy. It was so good to spend some time with Nayla, but geez, these visiting hours passed by quickly. Soon 5 p.m. arrived and I had to leave. It was even stormy out and I wasn't looking forward to the trip back. "Don't go," Nayla pulled on my arm. "I have an idea. Seeing as how my roomies are away, you should stay the night until the next day's curfew." She chewed on her lip. Wow, she was so sexy. She knew I couldn't resist it when she did that lip thing. I hugged her and said, "Now you're talking." That night we cuddled up on her bed and watched a romantic movie, had some chicken sandwiches and waffle fries. And with the sound of the storm outside as our setting, we French kissed. A lot. Talk about paradise. But then her phone buzzed. She checked the message. Her eyes full of panic, then she said, "Samuel, this is bad. The storm means that Phoebe and Luna are ending their trip early. They're on their way back." I knew that if anyone caught me here, they'd probably throw Nayla out. I couldn't let that happen to my girl. But escaping the hostel wouldn't be easy. She opened the door to check. The problem was her door opened up into the shared living room, and there were some girls hanging out in there. Ugh, what was I meant to do now? We were 4 stories up, so I couldn't exactly climb out of the window. And it's not like I could dig my way out. Nayla started pacing the room. Then she opened her wardrobe up and tried making space for me in there. Heck no! Confined spaces weren't my thing. But thankfully, just then, she shook her head and muttered to herself, "That's no good, the others use it too." She quickly changed her mind. Then grinning at me, she said, "I know, let's turn you into a girl." Immediately, she pulled out from the wardrobe this long wig we used last Halloween. Putting the thing on my head, she continued, "Almost. I know, you need makeup." Then she started slathering this powdery stuff on my face. Oh dear, the madness has begun. I was so stunned I just sat there and let her make me up like I was a doll. The wig was so itchy and it kept on sticking to my lip gloss and stuff, and I couldn't even see properly through the fake eyelashes she stuck on. After finishing, she stepped back to look at her finished masterpiece. Then she burst out laughing. I looked in the mirror. Even through my sticky eyelash vision, I could tell that I looked ridiculous. Seriously, I was more a clown than a girl. She threw an oversized dress at me and said, "I don't have anything else that'll fit you." I reluctantly got changed, and then I noticed that she was staring at my legs. I looked at them too. Geez, they were gorilla-level hairy. Don't worry, I'll sort those out for you." The next thing I knew, she was positioning me down on her desk chair and then passed me a towel. In case of emergency. Then she started preparing the wax strips. What could be so bad about a little bit of wax, huh? Then she ripped it off. Oh, good God, the pain. I began to perspire and bit down on the towel to block out my screams. Why did girls put themselves through this torturous activity? No thanks, I'd rather be hairy. The last wax strip was the worst, and my screams escaped out of the towel. Oops! I immediately jumped on the bed, facing the wall, and pulled a blanket over my head, while Nayla tried to put away all the makeup and stuff as fast as possible. The girls in the living room for sure had heard me and rushed inside. Behind them were Phoebe and Luna, who just got home. "What's with the screaming, and who is she?" Phoebe pointed at me. I thought I saw a spider, but it was just a clump of hair. And this is Samantha. She's my friend, but she's come down with a fever and she's gonna have to stay over." Suddenly, the blanket was pulled out and a hand came towards my forehead. My heart stopped beating for a second. Then Luna said, "Yup, she's on fire. Let's leave her to rest." Whew, that was a close one. Turns out the waxing session had heated me up so badly that I ended up drenched in sweat. So I could totally pass for being ill. Luckily, after that, the other girls left the room to give me some space. Nayla cuddled up to me and whispered, "You're doing great. We need to keep this up till morning. Then you can leave when the boys are allowed here." I gave a meek nod. I was too afraid to talk in case someone heard me. This was bad. But I guess all this drama wiped me out as I managed to fall asleep. I awoke to someone pounding my shoulder. "Hey, you're snoring like a grunting pig!" Nayla hissed at me. After that, I lay there wide-eyed and terrified. I didn't dare fall back to sleep. It was going to be a long night. The minutes went by so slowly, but then, oh no, Mother Nature called. I tried crossing my legs, but it didn't help. All I could think about was the beach and a waterfall, and I had to go to the bathroom right now. The room was dead quiet, so the other girls must be sleeping, right? I tiptoed through the room, then to the living room. Not familiar with the house, I had to use my hands to guide myself. Then suddenly, I accidentally touched something soft. While my brain was trying to work out what it was, I felt a slap across my face. Then a girl said, "Hey, what are you doing?" Horrified, I tried to squeak out a "sorry" with the girliest voice I could, then hurried off to find the bathroom. But that was not all. While I was in there, the door suddenly opened, and a girl saw me peeing while standing up. Damn it, I should have locked the door. Then she yelled out, "What on earth is this?" I finished what I was doing. then turned around to try to explain, but the girl looked so terrified as she pointed at me and stuttered, "Ghost! Ghost!" Oh, right. My wig was hanging down over my face, so I probably looked like that spooky girl from The Ring. I froze there, not sure what I should do next, when the other girls gathered around me. Luckily, my babe ran over and put her arm around my waist and said, "Sorry, girls, my friend often sleepwalks, and combined with the fever, well, it's made her delirious." Then she quickly pulled me back to her room and everyone dispersed. Phew, that was a close call. After that, I lay in bed too afraid to cough, flinch, and basically breathe. It was the longest and most tiring night of my life. Finally, morning arrived. This ordeal would end soon, right? Wrong! Phoebe and Luna wouldn't leave the room at all. What was going on? Didn't they have lives to lead? In the end, Nayla asked them, "You two don't have classes today, huh?" They must have shaken their heads or something, and then she said, "Oh, okay. There's a new clothes shop open in the mall. Want to check it out?" Without responding, Phoebe sprang to her feet, walked over to me, pulled back the blanket, and tugged at my wig. Then, with a massive smirk on her face, said, "Game over, Samantha." Shocked, me and Nayla tried muttering out explanations, but Phoebe rolled her eyes. "Quit it. I can recognize a man from a mile away. Besides, his boots are under your bed. Then there's his aftershave. It stinks." She waved her hand in front of her face. "Well, you fooled me." Luna stared at me. "Actually, your makeup's pretty good." "Huh, but not me," Phoebe sneered. "I only kept quiet because I don't want to get Nayla kicked out. That, and it was kind of funny watching you both try to keep up the pretense." She glared at me. "But I suggest you leave before I change my mind." I headed toward the door, but then Nayla said, Babe, you may want to change first." Oops. In all the drama, I'd forgotten I was still dressed up as a girl. She handed me some face wipes so I could remove the makeup. Then I changed back into my clothes, muttered out an apology to her roomies, then hurried out of there. So this happened a while ago, but just thinking about it still makes me cringe. Oh, the shame. I haven't seen Luna and Phoebe since, and I don't think I'll ever be able to look them in the eye again. One good thing to come out of it, that Nayla and me are now stronger than ever. The things we do for love, huh? So that's it, the most cringeworthy episode of my life. Yep, I know, it's so humiliating. So what about you? How bad is yours?
Okay, Cupcake, say ah. Ah. Ugh. Were they actually feeding each other? Seriously? How was I meant to concentrate on the movie with them doing that? Ugh, gross. Annoyed, I stood up, tipped my bucket of popcorn on their heads, then walked off. Don't panic, I'm not a crazy person. They weren't some random couple. Nope. I know them. The girl Shelly, she's my best friend. For as long as I can remember, it was just me and her. Best friends against the world. But then one day, this guy Leon showed up out of nowhere, and boom, they started dating. Do you know what the worst thing was? This Leon guy was 2 years younger than me. He was so immature, seriously. Every time I made plans with Shelly, he tagged along too. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was Shelly. I rolled my eyes as I answered, knowing she'd be furious. "Peter, how could you? I keep finding popcorn in my hair. It's gross. You're so childish." Yeah, whatever. She was the one who turned me into a third wheel for our scheduled movie night. I ended the call. I was done talking to her. That's when I saw the news article pop up on my phone. There was a weather warning for a freak magnetic storm. It was advising everyone to stay at home and turn all technological devices off. Well, that was fine by me. It's not like I wanted to stay out anymore anyway. So I went home and went straight to sleep. The next morning, I woke up and, why was my dad sitting at the end of my bed? I rubbed my eyes and asked him what was up. He seemed lost in thought, but then he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Nothing, son. If you feel like you want to talk, I'm here for you. I understand." Then he left my room. Huh? What was that all about? I went downstairs for breakfast. That's when I heard my granny say, "I will prove to you guys that he's not." Then I heard Dad say, "Mother, it's no big deal. Even if it's true, he's still our Peter." But when I walked into the kitchen, they all fell silent and gawped at me. I said, hey, you guys, what's the topic?" Then my mom replied while passing me a plate of pancakes, "Nothing, son." Even my younger sister Lena was acting strange. She gave me this weird smile, then shook her head. Okay, this was odd, but I just shrugged it off and ate my breakfast. Afterward, Mom asked me to help her out in the rock garden. Yeah, sure, I mean, it's not like I had anything better to do. Now, let me tell you, those rocks are way heavier than they look. As I struggled to carry one, I puffed out to Mom, "Where do you want this? It's so heavy. Can you call out Dad to help?" Shaking her head, she said, "No, you can do it. You're not a weak boy." Then she continued to direct me to carry the pile of rocks all over the garden. I carried on until I had jelly arms and couldn't manage it anymore. I told Mom I needed to take a break and began to head inside. She shouted after me, "No, you can do it by yourself. You're a big, strong boy." I didn't get it. Why couldn't she see that I was exhausted? That's when I spotted Shelly peering at me over the fence. She smiled, then waved me over. Hang on. Wasn't she still in a mood with me? So what had changed? Whatever. I needed to escape Mom, so I went over to her. She apologized for yesterday, then asked me if I wanted to go shopping. I agreed. Anything to get me out of lugging more rocks about. As I walked over to Shelly's car, I spotted my neighbor standing outside of his house. I smiled over at him, but he gave me this odd look, then started giggling. I quickly looked down at my pants. Nope, I hadn't forgotten to do my zip up, so why was he laughing at me? I was thinking about how weird everyone was being as I got into the car. Then I thought out loud, maybe it's the storm? It sent everyone bonkers. Then I told Shelly about all of the crazy things that had been going on. She nodded and said, "Yeah, it must be down to the storm." Well, it did make sense, because I'd read about magnetic storms and how they could impact people's moods and stuff. At the mall, we went into a shop and I helped her choose some clothes to try on. I picked up a purple dress and told her it was a lovely color, when suddenly my granny jumped up out of nowhere and said, "No, you don't love it. Follow me. I'll get you some new clothes." Then, before I could work out what was going on, she was pulling me out of the shop. I was so confused. "Granny, why are you here? Did you follow me?" She smiled up at me and replied, "Peter, darling, don't blame me for wanting the best for you." Huh? This was strange, but okay. I was about to get new clothes, so I didn't think I needed to question more about it. We ended up in this vintage shop, and I felt like I'd stepped into a time loop. All the items were from the 80s or even older. She started grabbing items off the rails and saying things like, "Ooh, I like this one," and "You'll look very handsome in this." This wasn't my style, but Granny looked so excited, and I didn't want to hurt her feelings. So yeah, I ended up trying the clothes on. I looked ridiculous. Granny seemed delighted. She gasped, clapped, and exclaimed, "Oh my, you're such a handsome boy," while Shelly was trying her hardest not to laugh. After that, we all went home, and yep, I was wearing the funny outfit. Everyone was pointing and laughing at me, but Granny seemed oblivious to this. She just smiled and said, "All the girls will fall for you now." Yeah, right. I doubt it. Later on, I was in my room minding my own business when my phone beeped. "Hey, I go to the same college as you. I saw you yesterday and I like your style. Do you want to hang out sometime? Lily, X." Huh? Was this someone's idea of a joke? I didn't know this number, nor this Lily girl. What was going on? The magnetic storm had sent everyone loopy, and I seemed the only sane one left. I immediately texted back that I wasn't interested, but geez, this girl was stubborn, and she wouldn't stop messaging me. Over the next few days, Granny's bizarre behavior continued. It was stressing me out. She kept giving odd looks in my direction and muttering stuff to Mom about me. But then one time she actually followed me when I was on my way to the shop and asked me why I wasn't in the outfit she'd bought for me. When I told her it was in the wash, she looked upset, shook her head, and mumbled out something about how I'd never find a nice young lady in my scruffy clothes. I tried messaging Shelly about it, but you guessed it, she was too busy with Leon to talk. So, in my loneliness, I turned to Lily. She was really sweet and said that my granny was probably just having an old people crisis, as the same thing happened with her gran, and that we should meet in the park and discuss it. I agreed to meet her, and while I was waiting for her to show up, this guy with movie star looks walked over. At first, I thought he was going to ask me for directions or something, But then he said in a flirty voice, "Hey, you're on time." Then before I could say anything, he continued, "It's me, Lily." What was going on? This was insane. I asked him, "Okay, so what game are you playing at?" He looked confused, then shook his head and said, "Well, I just want to hang out with you." Then he came closer to me and leaned on my shoulder. I pushed him away and stepped back. "Oh no, I'm not gay." He frowned at me, then shouted out, "What? You are. Everyone knows that you are." I stood there feeling puzzled when who should show up but my sister Lena. I asked her, "What the hell are you doing here?" With a Cheshire cat grin on her face, she said, "Just testing out if you're gay or not. And I have the answer. You're not. Now I'll have to tell Mom and Granny." Then she pulled out her phone. I grabbed her hand and said, "Hold on. What? Gay? Who said that? What's going on?" "I'm talking about the rumor. A couple of days ago, the neighbor told Mom that you're gay. Dad was cool about it, but Mom and Granny didn't take it well. Anyway, I told them I'd find out for sure. At first, I thought you were because you weren't interested in Lily, but now," she looked at the guy, "my friend Robbie confirmed you're not." Okay, this was crazy. But where did this rumor come from? I asked my sister and she replied, "Oh, they heard it from Leon." Leon? This was suspicious. So I went over to Shelly's for answers. As soon as she opened the door, I rose my eyebrow and asked her, "So, Shelly, everyone thinks I'm gay, and apparently it's down to something Leon said. Would you happen to know anything about this?" She blushed. "Peter, I'm sorry. Leon was so jealous of you that I ended up telling him you were gay, just so he'd be cool with us hanging out." I gritted my teeth in anger, then yelled, "I can't believe you ruined our friendship over that guy. So you'd rather spread wrong rumors about me than put some actual sense into your ridiculous boyfriend's head? You're so selfish. Well then, go live happily ever after with him as you wish. I'll stay out of your way." Then I hurried off. Later, she tried to call me, but I just turned off my phone. The next morning, I woke up and checked my social media to see a notification from Shelly pop right up. She had written a long post to tell everyone the truth and to apologize to me. Perplexed, I came downstairs to grab breakfast while considering if I should forgive her. Then I saw sitting in the living room was Shelly. Mom said she'd come over since early morning to apologize to me and my family. "Come, dear, she knows what she did wrong," Mom whispered to me before leaving us two alone. Shelly came right up to me. "Peter, I'm really sorry for being a jerk. You're my best friend, and Leon will just have to like it or lump it. I can get another boyfriend, but I never want to lose a friend like you." She spread out her arms. I hesitated, then we eventually hugged it out. So, Shelly and I are best friends again. My family, well, they're back to normal levels of craziness. Yeah, it wasn't cool of Shelly to start a rumor about me, but so what if it turned out I was gay? I've told Granny and Mom this. I guess they're both just old-fashioned and need to get with the times a bit more, and realize that it doesn't matter if I like girls or boys, as either way, I'm still me. They're same old Peter. At the end of the day, yup, I'm that guy who thought that the magnetic storm turned everyone crazy. One thing's for sure, Shelly will never let me forget this.
I was swaying to the music with the hottest girl at school in my arms. Everything was perfect when suddenly I saw a flurry of red storming toward me, and then the next thing I knew, I was being slapped across the face. Ugh, it was my ex, Rosie. She was looking at me as if she wanted to snap me in half. Okay, so Rosie and me had only broken up yesterday, but that didn't mean she had the right to go full psycho on me. Hey, so I'm Andrew, and I like to think I'm a pretty smart guy. The problem is, I'm a sucker for hot girls. I tend to be blinded by their beauty. The result being, I don't always make the best decisions around them. But I had no idea what drama my weakness for a pretty girl was about to get me into. So it all began with the end-of-term college party. Me and my friends went heavy on the drinks. So when my friend Brad bet me a burger that I wouldn't go and ask Lisa to dance, well, I didn't hesitate in approaching her. Geez, she's so hot and way out of my league. So I was expecting her to tell me to go away. but instead she smiled and let me lead her over to the dance floor. While we were dancing, she whispered in my ear that she'd always liked me. Then, yep, you guessed it, Rosie, my crazy ex, stormed over and slapped me. I woke up the next morning with a pounding headache. Ugh. What was all that shouting coming from outside my open window? I wrapped my bed cover around me and shuffled my way over there to take a look. Lisa and Rosie were yelling at each other. He's mine, not yours. Stay away. He wants me, not you. Deal with it. Oh yeah? Well, maybe we should ask Andrew who he prefers. What's the point? As we both know he'll pick me. I was far too hungover for this, so I closed the window and went back to bed. These girls, they wouldn't stop. For the next few days, they bombarded me with messages and waited for me outside my house. Okay, so most guys dream of two hot girls fighting over them, but trust me, watching them pull each other's hair extensions out isn't as glamorous as it sounds. Thankfully, my prayers were answered by none other than Richie, my awesome brother. He showed up with a ticket for a luxury 2-week cruise trip. He'd booked it ages ago, but then a work thing came up, so the ticket was all mine. Hell yeah! I hugged my brother, grabbed the ticket out of his hand, and started packing. The tricky part was sneaking past Rosie and Lisa, who were still lingering about outside. So I borrowed my housemate's hoodie and baseball cap and pretended to be him to get past them. Result, they didn't even double look at me. Goodbye to my Lisa and Rosie nightmare and hello to the vacation of my dreams. Ah, this is the life. Trust my brother to book such a lavish place. My room was huge and it had my very own balcony. There was so much to do here, from the outdoor bar, dozens of restaurants, swimming pool, cinema. I was on my own floating complex. Heaven. The next morning when I woke up in my king-size bed, I took in the sounds of silence. Yup, oh sweet silence, how I've missed you. This was a no-girl arguing zone. I got changed and walked over to the outdoor bar. It definitely wasn't too early for a cocktail. I had a pair of shades on, and that's when I spotted her. Whoa, she was beautiful. I quickly ordered 2 cocktails and began walking toward her. I was about to hand her the drink when I tripped over a sun lounger, and in slow motion I watched the cup fall. I desperately tried to grab it, but nope. Instead, I managed to knock into her back. She let out a yelp and then yelled out, "You pervert! What do you think you're playing at?" I stood there open-mouthed, contemplating if I should dive into the pool to escape this drama or not. Then I looked down at my sunglasses, which in all the action had fallen off. Suddenly, an idea came to me. So I bent down, stretched out my arms, and pretended to fumble around for them. She looked at me for a while, then picked my sunglasses up, placed them in my hand, then said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Here, let me help you." Then she took my arm and guided me across the pool area. I thanked her. And then, with my trusty shades on, I watched her walk away. So she thought I was blind. Yep, this wasn't my greatest idea, but it got me out of a sticky situation with a hot girl at least. Later that night, I went to the buffet restaurant for dinner. I was stacking my plate when I bumped straight into someone and almost dropped my plate. Ugh, it was that hot girl again. I quickly put my shades on, then deliberately turned the wrong way and loudly said, "Oh, I'm sorry." She put her hand on my shoulder and guided me so I was facing her, then said, "Yeah, it's me, the girl from the pool. And it's okay, I should have been looking where I was going. Do you need any help?" I quickly cut her off. "No thanks, it's okay." Then I lifted my plate up to my nose and sniffed it. These prawns sure smell good. She raised an eyebrow at my food-smelling talent, so I carried on pretending to sniff the food as I put it on my plate. And you know what? She wouldn't quit staring at me. Eventually, she walked off. Phew, what a narrow escape. Afterward, I went to the top deck bar to chill out, with yet another cocktail. Then who should walk over but, yup, you guessed it, the hot girl. I immediately looked away from her, but what's this? She walked over to me and sat down opposite me. "Hey, do you remember me?" she asked. Seeing my chance to flirt with her, I replied, "Oh yes, how could I forget someone as beautiful as you are?" "Huh? How do you know that I'm beautiful?" Damn it, I needed to think before I spoke. "Ah, well, it's your voice. A sweet voice like yours can only belong to a beautiful girl." Crisis averted. As after that we started chatting, and oh boy, she's a sweetheart. Do you know that she's an activist for an organization that works hard to guarantee the rights of baby girls born in Africa? I know, amazing. The evening came to an end and she said, "Oh, my name's Bella, by the way." I replied, "Bella, a name as beautiful as your soul. Mine's Andrew." She gave me a nervous giggle. "Well, Andrew, it's getting late, so I suppose I better get back to my cabin." I didn't want the night to ever end, so I blurted out, Whoa, Bella, look at the sky. Isn't it so stunning? She glared at me and then replied, How would you know that? Oops. Of course, I was meant to be blind. I can feel it from the breeze. She gave me a quizzing look, then said, Right. Well, good night. How about we meet at the arcade tomorrow, let's say 10 a.m.? I excitedly agreed, then she left. Another close escape. I really needed to be more careful. Bella, Bella, Bella. I couldn't stop thinking of her. The next day, I'm such a kid when it comes to arcades, I can't help it. My inner child comes out and, ooh, a car racing game. Nope, I was pretending to be blind. So I awkwardly lingered in the foyer and waited for Bella to show up. When she did, she took my arm and guided me through the arcade. She described all the different games machines to me, which I thought was really sweet. Then she led me over to the plushie grabber machine and squealed excitedly. Hoo-hoo, I loved these as a kid. Soon I was fumbling about to slot my money in, adamant I was going to win her a plushie. But wait, I was meant to be blind. So I touched the controls, then closed my eyes. Her laughter said it all. Massive fail. It was all going to be okay until Bella had to use the restroom and instructed me to stay put and wait for her by a shooting game machine, which just so happened to be my all-time favorite arcade game. I rushed over to it as soon as she was out of sight, grabbed a gun, and shot 5 cannons in a row. Then I jumped up and down and whooped in the air. I turned around and saw Bella frowning at me. Oh boy, busted. I tried to explain, but she just shook her head and said, How could you? You're a coward, a pervert, and a liar. Then she ran off. I felt terrible. I tried searching the ship for her, but I couldn't find her anywhere. Feeling bummed out, I ordered a cocktail, then went for a walk across the deck. Suddenly, I heard shouting coming from below me. Huh? What was that? I peered down and saw a man and a woman trying to drag a little girl into one of the safety rafts. Hang on, they weren't alone. Bella was there too. She was trying to pull the little girl away from them. Without even thinking, I dropped my drink and ran over to them. I charged towards the woman and knocked her so hard she almost fell into the sea. The man reached out to steady her, which gave Bella a chance to pick up the kid. Then she grabbed my arm and pulled me away. After that, the bad guys jumped into the raft and sailed away. We returned the girl to her parents. It turns out Bella was on her way to her cabin when she saw a couple in tears as they couldn't find their daughter. So she went looking for her and walked in on the kidnapping. After that, Bella forgave me. Well, I did save the day and all. And we spent the rest of the trip together. Then on our last day, I got down on one knee and asked her to be my girlfriend. And she said yes. I took her back home with me, and as we walked over to my house, Lisa and Rosie ran towards me and started arguing with each other about who I liked more. Oh shoot, I'd forgotten about them. Reading the situation, Bella approached them. Thank God you're here. I assume one of you is his girlfriend, right? There was an accident, and Andrew's blind now, and he really needs someone by his side 24/7. Hearing that, I quickly coordinated with her by waving my arms wildly about. So, which one is your girlfriend, Andy? It's Lisa. Rosie quickly chimed in. No, he's all yours. We only hung out once. Ha, what suckers. I watched them run away. Then Bella and I burst out laughing. After that, I held my arm out to her and let her guide me home, for old time's sake. Lying to her about being blind was a jerky thing to do, but I only did it in the first place because being around beautiful girls makes me so nervous I do dumb stuff. It's just lucky that Bella forgave me, because I think this dumbass may have found his dream girl.
It was March 31st. A normal day, right? Well, yeah, but not tomorrow. Nope, as it was April Fool's Day. A prankster like me waits all year for that one day when I can play jokes on people without them getting in a mood with me. I've been planning my tricks for months, and boy oh boy, it's going to be so much fun. I turned to my best friend Aya and said with a devious smile, Just you wait until tomorrow. My prank ideas are going to be legendary. I thought Aya would want to know more, but nope. She just blew her fringe out of her face, then sighed out, Fleur, why don't you just give it a rest this year? Reality check. No one finds your pranks funny. Only uncomfortable and annoying. What? No way! That's not true. People love my pranks. Aya continued. Do you remember your pencil prank on Luna last year? I nodded and let out a snort. How could I forget that prank, as it had been so funny? I'd cut Luna's pencil in half, filled her pencil grip with ink, then assembled it back together just like new. And voila! Cue an ink explosion during an otherwise boring test. Luna cried a lot because she failed her biology test and had to retake it. I shrugged. So this was technically true, but it was still funny. And the time you swapped the cheerleading team's chant music for heavy metal and made a fool out of them at the basketball match? She frowned at me. Jeez, stop being a fun killer. I'm making everyone's high school experience memorable. As, let's face it, no one will remember boring tests and tedious basketball matches otherwise. I was too busy talking to notice the ball whizzing through the air until it whacked me right on the head. Ouch! The world went black and I collapsed. I opened my eyes to see Aya and some other kids gawping down at me. Then my teacher rushed over and shooed them off. Fleur, are you okay? Her and Aya helped me sit up, and while I rubbed my head, I replied, Yeah, I'm fine, but I do feel a little dizzy. The teacher thought it would be best if I went home early, so she told Aya to take me back. I was so tired, but I knew sleeping when I might have a concussion was a bad idea, so I chilled out and watched a movie in my room until Mom came home from work. Okay, so my head hurt, and the room was still spinning, but there was no way I was going to let this small accident ruin my big day. I had planning to do, so I grabbed my notebook and checked through my prank ideas and prop list. The next morning, I woke up bright and early, and yay! The spinning had stopped. Whoa, today was the day. Let the pranking commence. I told Aya to meet me earlier, so I had time to set up my pranks. But to my annoyance, she showed up at the usual time. I hurried over to her and tapped my watch. What time do you call this? Now I'm going to be behind schedule. She gave me a puzzled look. For what? It's not April 1st anymore. Today is the 2nd. You had yesterday off because of your head bump, remember? What? What are you talking about? Look, it says today is April 1st. I waved my phone in her face. Then your calendar is wrong. Check your settings or something. Now, let's go. She walked off. No way. Don't think you can fool me, I said while trying to run after her. As soon as I arrived at school, I joined my friends in the canteen for breakfast, and Kelly looked at me and said, How's the head? I told her it was fine and passed her an Oreo. You know what? She ate it with no hesitation, but after one bite, she spat it into her hand. Ew, what is that? Yuck! I laughed at her and said, Ha! That's toothpaste sandwiched between Oreo biscuits. Okay, I'm sorry. Drink this. Then I passed her a bottle of cola. She took a big gulp, then immediately spit it out. Hey, this is so gross. Then she ran to the bathroom to clean her mouth. Yep, I put soy sauce in that bottle. I followed her to the bathroom to check on her and found her rinsing her mouth out under the tap. When she finished, she frowned at me and said, Fleur, this isn't funny. I thought you only did these stupid pranks on April 1st. Now I have to put up with my stinky soy sauce breath all day. I rolled my eyes, then smirked. Yeah, as if it's not April 1st today. It's not. What's wrong with you? It's the 2nd. Then she stormed off. Wait, what? What did she mean it was the 2nd? No way. Anyways, seeing as I was already in there, I decided I may as well carry out another prank. I pulled out my Nutella jar and went into one of the cubicles and waited until another girl went into the one next door. I asked her, Hey, excuse me, my friend, do you have toilet paper in there? She was nice and replied, Sure. Then she passed it to me. I quickly put some Nutella on my hand, then rubbed it over her hand too. Oops! Oh boy, she screamed so loudly, and I couldn't hold my laugh. Ew, what the hell? So disgusting, you freak! Then she ran out to wash her hand. I stepped out. Relax, girl. It was just a prank for Fool's Day. Just Nutella. But she sneered back. You're crazy, and it's the 2nd already. Jeez, what's wrong with you? Then she left. Okay, this was so weird. Why was everyone acting like it was April 2nd? On the way to class, I rechecked my phone. Yep, it said April 1st. Okay, I got it. This was everyone's dumb attempt to fool me. Well, nice try, but it so wasn't working. As it was the 1st, which meant it was time for math class. I took my seat in class and waited, but, why did Mr. Simmons, the chemistry teacher, walk in? He told us to prepare for our next lesson in the lab. What was going on? I was so confused. That was tomorrow's schedule, right? Then he sat down in the chair without any suspicion and a big fart sound came. I laughed so much my sides hurt. I couldn't believe it. I do this every year, but they fall for it each time. But hang on, why was everyone so quiet? I looked around and realized I was the only one laughing. Oh, come on, everybody. It was fun. The typical joke for April Fools. Mr. Simons held up the fart pillow and gave me a stern look. Fleur, I don't expect this behavior from someone your age, especially seeing as it's not even April Fool's Day anymore. And can you believe it? All my classmates agreed with him. No way! Everyone was crazy. No, it is. I know it is. You're all lying, I replied in a panic before I gathered up my stuff and ran out of the classroom. I really needed some space to think this through. It was all so crazy. I couldn't have zoned out for an entire day. Could I? Or the ball hit me so hard that I lost my memory? I remember having dinner, then staying up late to plan out my pranks, and I know I was tired, but no way. They were the crazy ones, not me. Anyway, lab time. I was the last one to walk in, and I sat down at my bench and started on the experiment. I guess I wasn't focusing properly as I poured the chemical into the beaker, and boom! The next thing I knew, I was covered in this weird green powder stuff. Still, no one was laughing. Instead, they were all staring at me and asking if I was okay. Then Mr. Simons asked them all, "Why is this chemical bottle here? What a mistake!" Embarrassed, I ran to the bathroom to clean my face. Geez, I looked like the Grinch. It was super tricky to scrub off. Ugh, I hoped I wouldn't be stuck with this color forever. But was it someone's prank on me? But if that's the case, then why did no one laugh? I sure would have laughed at me if I was them. Finally, the green powder started to come off, and then I went back to class. On top of my backpack was a folded-up note with my name on it. I opened it. Hi, Fleur. There's something important I want to tell you. Meet me in the hall after class. Devin, X. My heart instantly fluttered. I'd had a crush on Devin for, forever. But, oh, I got this. This had to be a prank. Everybody knew I liked him, so they did all of this to embarrass me. Devin must be involved this time. I glanced over at him, and he smiled, then gave me this cute wave. Whatever, this was definitely too good to be true. Enough. I wasn't going to let everyone laugh at me anymore. So, as I followed Devin to the hall, I took a sip of water, but I kept it in my mouth. Then, when Devin stopped walking and turned to face me, I squirted the water up into the air like an elephant, then said, "Ha! Gotcha! I'm no fool." He wiped his face onto the back of his sleeve, then looked me straight in the eye and said, "Fleur, I have feelings for you. I waited until today to tell you, as I didn't want to do it yesterday on April Fool's Day, as you'd probably think it was a joke. So why do that to me?" I stared at him speechless. The highlighted words that I'd heard were feelings, yesterday, and April Fool's Day. I started laughing a fake laugh, but then it turned awkward, 'cause his serious expression didn't budge. "You're kidding, right?" I muttered out, but he looked totally devastated. Oh no, I didn't want to upset Devin. I was just confused with days and, as if I actually missed April Fool's Day. What a bummer! I realized my prank had gone too far, and how it could have hurt his feelings, so I blurted out, "Devin, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. It's the concussion. I'm delirious. I'm so sorry." Then came an awkward silence. Suddenly, Devin's sad look changed into a smirk, and he began to laugh. Then everyone jumped out of nowhere and started laughing too. I stood there with a gormless expression on my face. Then Aya appeared and said, "Gotcha!" So it turns out it was actually April the 1st, and I hadn't actually missed a day. Nope, this was Aya's ingenious idea for everyone to get their own back on me. Last night, she created a group on Facebook and added everyone in the class, including the teachers, to plan today's prank. No, this couldn't be possible. I was the pranking queen, not them. Then Aya sidled up to me and said, "Hey Fleur, guess what? It's still April Fool's Day." The next thing I knew, I was grinning at her. Then I play hit her arm and started to laugh. I guess that they had fooled me good. After that, I didn't carry out any more pranks. I was just happy to have a chilled rest of the day. Then, when I was walking home, Devin caught up with me and said, "Fleur, I'm sorry. But actually, not everything was a joke today." I smiled and looked at him. "Oh yeah? So, what's not a joke?" But he just turned tomato red, then rushed away. I stood there blushing as I watched him hurry off. Did this mean Devin really likes me? Interesting. Maybe this April Fool's Day wasn't such a fail after all.
Scott, I said it's over. You're just too immature for me. He gave me a quizzing look, then said, "Huh? What? Babe, we're great together." I rolled my eyes. I just figured I don't need to be with someone with such a childish mentality. I need someone mature and— "Whatever, Linda. Find me when you change your mind," he grunted. Then he put his earphones in and walked off. Well, at 15, I needed a guy with a certain maturity, not some loser who still found fart jokes funny. Please. My friends, Patty and Louise, agreed with me. I'm far too popular, pretty, and confident to date just anyone. Anyway, as luck should happen, I was walking along the school corridor when I saw this lost-looking but amazingly handsome guy. Flicking out my hair, I approached him with my friendliest voice. "Hey, are you okay?" Flustered, he replied, "Yes, which way is it to the principal's office?" "I'm going that way anyway, so I'll show you." This was a blatant lie, as my class was in the other direction, but he didn't know that. Later that day, I walked into physics class with Lewis and stopped dead. Standing at the front of the class was that handsome guy. It turns out he was the substitute teacher, and written on the board behind him was the name Mr. Hulton. "My first name is Colin, by the way," he smiled. I whispered to Lewis, "Seems like science class has heated up." Then I walked over to my seat. There's no way I could concentrate on the density of materials, not with the hottest teacher ever sharing the same airspace as me. I needed to find a way to get to know him and show him that I wasn't like the other girls my age. Instead, I was far more mature and self-assured than them. So, at the end of class, I walked over and asked him if he'd go over a few things with me. He gladly agreed, so I got to sit down next to him and daydreamed in the scent of his musky cologne. Physics class became my favorite. With my head in my hands, I watched him address the class. He saw me looking at him a few times, but he always quickly looked away. It's okay. I got it. He was just trying to look professional. Then, one time he asked the question, "According to Einstein, is light a partial or a wave?" I stuck my hand in the air and grinned. He looked a little flustered. "Linda?" I puckered my lips and looked straight at him. "That shirt color really suits you, sir. It brings out your eyes." Some of the other kids in class laughed, and he awkwardly fiddled with his collar. So cute! Then he coughed and said, "Linda, do you know the answer?" "Oh, what was the question again?" I stared dreamily at him. Honestly, I couldn't remember anything afterwards but his charmingly severe look. Then one afternoon, Colin asked me to stay behind after class. Result, he must have fallen for this Linda's irresistible charms. Didn't he? I shyly stood before him, and in a serious tone he said, "Linda, is everything okay with you? You seem off lately." "No, sorry, it's awful." I glumly looked down at my feet and took a few seconds to continue. "My family is so poor, and my home life is just horrible. I only have nice things because my friends lend me stuff." His gaze softened. I pretended to dab at my fake tears. "Please, don't tell anyone. I couldn't cope with the shame. It's enough just having you to talk to." I smiled at him. "Yeah, sure." He looked at me gently and said, "Anytime." Oh my. His eyes were so big and blue and, I could drown in them. He obviously liked me too. He just couldn't do anything about it yet, as he was nervous. With him being my teacher and all. But soon he'd realize that me and him were so meant to be. Like Ariana Grande and Dalton Gomez. I continued to stay behind after classes so I could talk to Colin about my make-believe terrible home life. He always listened and told me it'd be okay. He was so sweet and sensitive. Then one time, I left Colin's classroom to find Scott there, waiting for me. Ugh. I told him to go away and started walking, but he followed me. "So what? You're into old men now?" "What?" I glared at him. "Yeah, I'm not stupid. I know you like Mr. Halton. You need to snap out of that dreamland and see he's on a different level to you." Angered by this, I looked him square in the eye and snidely replied, "No, Scott, you're the one on a different level to me. About 50 levels down, to be precise." I gave the thumbs down sign. He looked wounded as he turned his back to me and started walking off. He had it coming. I walked outside to see Scott lingering around, talking to Patty and Lewis. They didn't see me, so I overheard Scott say, "She can't see how tragic she's being." "You know her. She's so stubborn. Of course, Mr. Halton doesn't like her in that way." Ahem. I faked a cough, and they all turned to look at me. I put my hand on my hip and stared them down. "Look, I'm sorry, Linda. We're just worried about you. Yeah, this fantasy of yours will hurt you." Ugh! What did they know? I rolled my eyes. "For your information, Colin and I are really dating. In fact, he's taking me out tonight, so I can't hang out." I walked off the other way, knowing full well that the looks on their face would be priceless. I know Colin wasn't actually my boyfriend, yet, but I knew it would happen soon. It was written in the stars. The next day, as I walked into school, I noticed some of the other kids whispering to each other and pointing at me. Okay, weird. Maybe it was my new dress or something. I bought it because it was an exact colored match to Colin's eyes. But things got weirder in physics class, because as soon as Colin walked in, everybody started giggling. Colin looked confused and said, "Okay, what's so funny?" Then this girl, Sally, shyly muttered out, "Sir, we heard you have a new girlfriend." He raised an eyebrow. "Yes, that's correct. How do you know?" He gave a nervous laugh. "Actually, this shirt is a gift from her." I felt the entire class's eyes turn to me. Well, except for Colin's. I tried to keep my cool, but inside I was fuming. How dare some other woman steal my man and force him to wear that hideous shirt? I knew I needed to keep up the lie, so after class I walked over to Lewis and Patty and said, "How cute does Colin look in that shirt?" They both frowned at me. Then Patty replied, "So you really are dating him?" "Yep," I gave a nod. "Right." She gave a skeptical look. They all needed to realize that Colin and I were the real deal. So I bought a box of candy and cut out a heart-shaped tag saying, "Love you, honey," with my candy floss scented gel pen. I did feel kinda nervous as I walked over to him, but our love was meant to be. "Hi, Linda. Can I help you?" "I got you this." I placed the gift down on his desk. He read the note and his face fell. Then, in a firm voice, he said, "Look, Linda, this is wrong." "No," I shook my head. "I know you like me." "Linda, please, you're my student. You're just a child." "No, we're meant to be together. You love me. I know you do." "I don't," he said sternly. "Now please leave." He rejected me? This had to be down to his new girlfriend. She was obviously poisoning his mind, as there was no way he couldn't like me. I wasn't leaving the room until he admitted he loved me too. So, crying, I sat down on the floor and folded my arms. Right at that moment, Patty and Louise rushed into the room and helped me up. Then they stared daggers at Colin as they led me out into the corridor. Turned out they'd followed me and observed through the window. How embarrassing. Thinking quick, I blubbered out, "He's such a jerk. I devoted all of myself to him, but he's bored of me now, so he dumped me." Just like that. My friends comforted me as they told me he wouldn't get away with it. There's no way I could face Colin again just yet. So I feigned being sick and stayed home. Only when I returned to school, he wasn't there. Then the principal called me to their office. I walked in to see both my parents sitting there with devastated looks on their faces. Oh no. What was going on? "Sweetie, we're sorry for not protecting you more." Mom looked over at me with glassy eyes. Then the principal said, "Mr. Hulton has been fired, and the police are investigating him. Rest assured, nothing like this will happen again." Huh? Colin had been fired? Why? Then the reality hit me. It was because they thought he'd been having a relationship with me. I muttered out, "No, you've got it all wrong. Nothing happened." "Linda, I know this is difficult, but he's a bad man." It didn't matter what I said. They remained convinced that I was so manipulated by Colin that I'd say anything to clear his name. Straight after the meeting, I found Patty and Louise, and they confessed that they hated seeing me so upset, so they'd told the principal about me and Colin. I took a deep breath, then I blurted out, "But I made it up! All of it!" Of course, they were super angry with me for lying, but after bearing their tantrums for some 30 minutes, they agreed to help me clear his name. So they went to the cop station with me, and we told them everything. It worked, as Colin had his name cleared, but unsurprisingly, he never came back to teach at my school. The three of us were suspended from school, and my parents grounded me for a month. Patty and Louise are still my friends, but I can see they don't trust me anymore. Anytime I tell them anything, they give each other these, "yeah, right" looks. I feel so guilty for everything I did. It was never meant to go that far, but I now realize that my childish behavior almost cost a good man his future. I wish I could apologize to Colin in person, but I know I'll never get a chance to. Please be careful with your words, as they could ruin someone's career, life, everything. If, like me, you adore your teacher, then please just respect them, be nice, and let them be.
Finally, I'm out of that morbid place. Now let me tell you, sharing a cell with a dozen other noisy, stinky, grumpy dudes ain't fun. Anyway, here I am, free as a bird now. So no one's here to pick me up. Suppose I'd have to call Mom. It took me a few seconds to familiarize myself with my phone. Jeez, it'd been 4 years. It was a miracle I hadn't turned into one of those leg-cradling crazy dudes. How I ended up in there in the first place was a joke. All I did was take some stuff from 1 or 2 warehouses and sell them on. No big deal. "Yo, Mom, it's your boy Cole. I'm out, and yeah, I need a lift home." I spoke the moment I heard Mom's voice. "Cole, Do you have any idea what hell your actions have put your mother through?" My dad was so good at overreacting, but I needed somewhere to stay, so I could handle him. "But Dad, Mom, come on, I'm still your son. You have the heart to see me homeless and sleeping next to rats?" There was a brief pause. Then Dad grunted, "You can stay for a few weeks, but only for your mother's sake." "Thanks, Dad. You're the man." Bingo. My parents were like putty in my hands. This was the life. I played video games all day, then partied all night. Then one night, I was getting ready to meet my friend Moose, when Mom told me that the pizza delivery guy was at the door. I shouted down to her, "You can shout me this one, and I'll get the next." I finished getting ready, and I must say, I was looking smooth. I strode down into the kitchen and grabbed a slice of pizza. Dad was sitting there glaring at me over his report. "If you can't afford to pay for items, then I suggest you don't order them." He looked at the pizza slice in my hand. Mom walked up behind him and placed her hands on his shoulders. "Darling, give him some more time. He's still adjusting to outside life." "Thanks, Mom. You're the greatest." I gave her a greasy pizza kiss on the cheek. Any chance you can lend me some dough?" Dad shook his head and sighed, while Mom went over to her purse and passed me some money. Hey, there'd be plenty of time to get a job and be responsible. Right now, I had 4 years of lost time to make up for. Once, I borrowed Dad's car. I swear I only had a couple of beers, but the world glitched out and went all blurry. The next thing I know, I'd driven straight into the neighbor's front yard. Oops. I opened my eyes the next morning to a killer headache, so all I wanted was some black coffee and a plate full of bacon. But I got Dad's death stare instead. Just when I think you can't get any more irresponsible, you took my car without asking, drank too much, then drove into Gloria's beloved rose bushes. Chill out, Dad. I'll fix it later, I said as I raided the fridge for food. You're not the one having to pay for the damages. We've made our decision. You have 1 week to get out of our house. Now hold up. I had 0 places to go. I couldn't stay with Moose as he was crashing in his sister's garage, and I didn't know anyone else. How could they? I gotta chill a bit, so I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through dating apps. Then I matched with this stunning blonde called Trudy. She's a little older than me, but her family is rolling in dough, and also, she has her own business. Not only that, but she's hotter than an agitated dragon. So yeah, her photos seemed a little grainy, but guess the retro trend was in. Looks like I had it both ways, love and money. I have quite a face, but since I love beer and pizza, and without any dedication for the gym, I don't have the perfect body. But I needed to keep this girl interested. So I told her I was a tall dude with an impressive six-pack, who just graduated and was on the lookout for a girl with brains as well as beauty. This girl was actually pretty easy to talk to. She sent me pictures of her latest purchases, like phones, expensive watches, and designer clothes, along with the promise that when we started dating in person, she'd buy me whatever I wanted. Result: after 4 days of face pics and my priceless conversation, Trudy was smitten, and she sent me a message saying, "Cole, I haven't known you long, but I know how I feel. I love you. X." Okay, that's really fast, but yeah, I've won the lottery over here. Hey, maybe she lied about her look too, but it didn't matter. She's rich. So I replied to her, "I know, babes. I feel it too. X." We immediately arranged to meet in person and decided on a yellow dress code. I looked around the park trying to spot this gold mine, but all I could see was some old lady in a yellow dress. Okay, coincident, but why is she heading my way? The closer she got toward me, the wider her grin was. Cole, right? It's me, Trudy. What? No. How come this corny, overweight, wrinkly old lady be Trudy? I was expecting the blonde beauty from the photos, not Big Bird. Once I got over the initial shock, we sat down and talked. Turns out my dream girl was in her 50s. All the descriptions and photos of her were true, but 30 years ago. She was clearly in the middle of a midlife crisis or something. "You're not the same either," she sneered. "You're barely taller than me. And where's the gym body?" All right, fair enough. I fake smiled. "Yeah, despite you looking different, I still find you very beautiful." That night, I tossed and turned. This was all so unexpected. Trudy was totally not my type. But dating her might not hurt. She was rich. And also, I had to move out tomorrow. So at least she'd pay for me. With that, I sent her a message. "Babe, you're beautiful, and I want to make us official. X." The next day, I moved in with Trudy. Now, let me tell you something. Her apartment was lavish. It was full of the latest tech. Crazy. Seeing as she was so old, she probably didn't know how to use them. She worked a lot, so most of the time I was home alone. And I was free to watch cartoons and movies, munch on potato chips, and play as many video games as I felt like. One time, I was watching a movie when the door opened. And in stepped this glary-eyed dude. I shouted at him, "Hey dude, you have the wrong apartment." He tutted and said, "I can assure you that I don't. I'm Alex, Trudy's son, and you must be Cole. I would say it's a pleasure to meet my mother's gold-digging boyfriend in the flesh, but unfortunately, it's not." What? Trudy has a son? And by the looks, he's even older than me. And how dare he called me a gold digger? I suppose I was, but still, he had no right to call me it. Even worse, he refused to leave. He just sat in the kitchen and waited for his mom to return. Then he had a heated argument with her in which he referred to me as a loser and a bum. Things weren't any better with my parents either. Dad told me to be independent and get a real job, not a sugar mama, and Mom was just crying. Whatever. This was their fault for kicking me out in the first place. What did they expect me to do? Live under a bridge? Few days after I met Alex, Trudy insisted on dragging me along to his lame work launch thing. As soon as I got there, I went straight to the food. I was stuffing a mini quiche into my mouth when this girl walked up alongside me and said, "Great minds think alike." I gave her a gormless look. Then she pointed at the food. We both headed straight for the food. I laughed at that. This girl was funny. And hot. Really hot. Her name is Beatrice, and she works for that loser Alex. After that, I started seeing a lot more of this Beatrice girl, as she often popped over with Alex, and while he was arguing with his mom, usually about me, I chatted to her. That was how I found out she wasn't having it easy either. She was behind on her rent because her truant brother had stolen the money and spent it all. I felt bad for her, so I took the envelope full of cash that Trudy had given to me, and I handed it to her. Okay, so I wouldn't be able to buy anything new for a few weeks, but it was worth it just to know that she'd be okay. Truth was, I was really falling for Beatrice, but I couldn't do anything about it, as I was with Trudy, and I was relying on her handouts. Soon, things became stinky. I came out of the shower to see Trudy standing there with my phone in her hand. "How could you?" She threw it at me. Yeah, so she'd read all of the messages I'd sent to Moose, saying how I didn't find her remotely attractive and I was only with her for a free ride. "Trudes, my babes, come on, those messages were just me joking." I laughed. "I was just messing around." "Shut up, you liar! You find me hideous. Alex was right. You were only using me for my money. And worse, you never went to college. Instead, you were in jail." I was about to lay on the cold charm when Alex and Beatrice bursted into the room. Alex shouted at me, "How lowlife you are. What a shameless gold digger." "It's appalling. I've told her to report you to the cops." Beatrice interrupted. "No, don't do that. What Cole did was wrong, but he's not all that bad. Please." I was so moved. Took a look around. Trudy was crying. Alex was so furious his eyes were bulging. And Beatrice, well, she just looked disappointed. I then packed my stuff and left in shame. Well, that was a few months ago, and I have a decent job now. Even though I live back at home, I pay my way, and I'm saving up to put a deposit down on my own place. I never should have used Trudy like that. She might be old, but she still has feelings, and the way I treated her wasn't right. I was undeniably a douchebag back then. All I want is to have a happy life with Beatrice. I really love her, which is why I asked her to be my girlfriend, but she rejected me. Man, it stung, but I'm not giving up. Perhaps she might give me a chance once she sees I've changed. I can't fix the past. All I can do now is improve myself and keep on rolling forward.
I blinked open my eyes. Whoa, my head felt dizzy. And, why was I covered in scratches? My mind was totally blank. I couldn't remember what happened. The last picture flashing through my mind was a heated argument between me and some guy. Then I stormed off and now, here I am, in this gloomy place. I think it's a basement or something. It's cold, and it stinks of damp. Dang it! I cannot remember his face. I knew I needed to get out of here, and fast. I ran to the door and tried opening it, but to no avail. It's locked. I slammed my hands against the door and shouted, "Anyone? Help!" I could hear footsteps approaching, so ignoring my throbbing palms and burning throat, I banged on the door and screamed out, "Open the door!" Oh my God! It's him! The guy I'd been arguing with before! He was holding a sandwich and smiling gently at me. "Oh, Alice, my puppy, are you awake? I thought you might be hungry." "Who are you? You brought me here, didn't you? What do you want? He looked confused, then sadly blurted out, Oh no, honey. You must have memory loss from the accident. It's your Josh here. I'm your boyfriend. I squinted at him. He did look familiar, but what boyfriend? What accident? He showed me the photos on his phone. OMG! That was me with him, and we looked so happy together. But why can't I remember anything? I hit my head with my hands in frustration, while Josh just stood there against the wall staring at me and giggling. So maybe this Josh guy was my boyfriend, but that didn't explain why he'd locked me up in this dungeon. This wasn't a normal boyfriend thing to do. I rushed to the door, but he grabbed me in his arms. Let me out! You definitely have some wicked intention going on bringing me here. I scowled. Oh my gosh, Alice, you've been watching too many movies. Do you really not remember anything? I gave him a clearly not look, then folded my arms. I guess the accident was pretty intense. We argued, then you insisted on driving while you were drunk, and then caused a fatal accident. Never mind. I think we shouldn't go in too deep about that right now. It must be traumatizing for you. But that's why I decided to bring you here, so the cops wouldn't arrest you. What? Why couldn't I remember such a horrible thing? But looking at all the wounds on my face and body, maybe everything was exactly like what Josh said. No! I have to confess. I stuttered in tears. Are you crazy? Do you want to go to jail? But... Alice, no buts. I'm gonna protect you and keep you safe. This was a lot to process, so in a moment of panic, I found myself agreeing to his crazy plan. Josh said this was an emergency bunker back from his grandfather's time. Sure thing. I mean, it sure smelled musty. There's not even a window, just a flickering wall light. It felt like I was in a horror movie. Josh also told me that he'd taken my phone off me, so the cops wouldn't be able to trace it and arrest us both. And that's it. Every morning, noon, and night, Josh would bring me food and talk to me about his day. Puppy, I'm home. Puppy? Oh, it sounded cute at first, but I soon became allergic to that word. Hey, puppy, eat this. Puppy this, puppy that. Puppy, puppy, puppy. I was so fed up with the word puppy that at times I actually thought I was nothing more than a pet to him. Then each night, he insisted on rubbing my back so I'd fall asleep more easily. Sounds nice, right? But no, it wasn't. He rubbed it really hard, and when I asked him to stop, he just laughed. Obviously, he wasn't doing it to make me feel better, but regarded it as a pastime. Ugh! And that's not all. A few times, I'd wake up to see him sitting there, staring at me with this gummy grin on his face. Then, when I checked my hair, I saw that he'd tied loads of these dumb little bows in it. Are you crazy? I'm not a kid! I grumbled while pulling and throwing all those dumb things out of my head. But puppy, they look so cute. Tom always liked them. I glared at him. Didn't bother saying anything anymore. Oh, and FYI, yes, Tom's his old dog's name. Okay, so I didn't need a genius to figure out that something was seriously up with this guy's head. But then, things got weirder. One time, he brought down food for us to eat together. It was fried chicken, and as soon as I smelt it, my eyes sparkled. I was about to take a piece when suddenly he pulled the plate away and took a big bite. I didn't even have time to react. Then he handed me the chicken thigh bone he hadn't finished yet. Help me with the rest, puppy. This part is too hard to gnaw. I rolled my eyes at him and flushed up with anger. Seeing my reaction, he said, What's wrong, puppy? Tom always loved the leftovers. Are you crazy? I screamed. Yo, I'm kidding. Don't you know how to take a joke? He grinned. Kidding? What kind of kidding is that? I've had enough of this. This place was driving me insane. I could hardly sleep at all because I couldn't even distinguish between day and night. Then, when I did close my eyes, I found myself tormented by the serious crime I'd committed. Josh was trying to save me. Yes, but I didn't ask him to do that. I couldn't live like this. I needed to face the truth. I had to turn myself in. The next morning, when Josh brought me breakfast, I told him what I wanted to do. Expectedly, he got mad and glared at me. Alice, why do you want to go to jail so badly? I can't stay here forever. I have to face up to what I've done. But it's so peaceful here with me. Peaceful? Was he being serious? It sure didn't feel peaceful. Instead, I felt like I was playing the role of his pet. I lurched forward, but Josh immediately grabbed me so I couldn't move. I tried squirming my way free, but he was a strong guy. Suddenly, he covered my nose with a handkerchief and my eyes closed. Then everything turned black. I slowly opened my eyes. I was in the same familiar room, but bars. I saw bars! Ugh! I was in a cage! Then I kicked something. It was a water bowl! Puppy, you're so naughty! I can't lose you, so I've put you in here! He grinned at me as he handed me a sandwich. I chucked it away, then screamed at him to let me out. Seeing this, he immediately left and returned with a bunch of plush toys and dropped them in the cage. Hope they'll make you happier. Then he tried to stuff the sandwich into my mouth. Furiously, I took a bite and spat it in his face, then sneered while throwing the toys at him. Geez, some of them even squeaked. Wow. Okay. His demeanor changed, and his eyes turned scary. If that's what you want, don't blame me later. Things were different after that. Each day, he only gave me a bowl of those gross-smelling biscuits, then he'd just sit there gawping at me. At first, I refused to eat them. But in the end, I was so exhausted that I gave in, even though I'm pretty sure they were dog biscuits. Ugh! I realized that resisting him wasn't benefiting me at all. It was only making him act more horrible. That's when a genius plan popped into my head. So the next time when Josh appeared with the biscuits, I smiled sweetly at him and said, Josh, baby, it's been so long since we've been on a date. How about you go and get us a bottle of wine, and we can spend some quality time together? His eyes lit up, and of course, he agreed without hesitation. He hurried off to get the wine. Cheers to us! Josh, you're the love of my life, and I'm so grateful to God for bringing you into my life. Please stay with me forever. I flashed a sweet smile and whispered in his ear. Every time he took a sip of wine, I fluttered my eyelashes at him as I refilled his glass. To say I'm a Hollywood actress with an Oscar-worthy performance would be an understatement. Soon, Josh was so drunk he went cross-eyed. He fell to the ground before I even finished pouring him the last glass of wine. Seizing the opportunity, I stepped over him to get out, when suddenly, a hand grabbed my ankle. Oh no, I'm screwed! My heart felt like it was about to jump out of my chest. I immediately turned around, ready to fight him when, well, it turned out he was just dreaming. Phew. Thank God. I gently pulled my foot free and immediately dashed out of there. I climbed up the stairs to a living room where I found my phone left on the table. I quickly grabbed it and ran out of that horrible house. My legs trembled, and I felt like they might give away beneath me at any second. But somehow, I managed to find the inner strength to keep on running. I couldn't use my phone as it was out of battery, and I was too disoriented to figure out where my home was. So, when I stumbled upon a police station, I walked toward it. I took a deep breath. This was a tough decision. I knew I was going to jail, but I couldn't live in creepy Josh's basement forever and be his substitute pet. No thanks. I had to face up to what I'd done. Sir, I'm here to confess. The cop looked confused and told me there hadn't been a fatal accident recently. But then he said I looked familiar, so he looked up my name, and turns out my family had reported me missing. That liar Josh had tricked me. It was all a ruse so he could imprison me. How vile! I charged my phone, and up popped hundreds of messages and voicemails from my worried friends and relatives. This was all so overwhelming. I put my head down for a moment. Then all the memories gradually surfaced. I'd been in the mall parking lot, and I felt like someone was following me. So I hid in the corner, and that's when Josh appeared. So I asked him, "Why are you following me?" "Alice, I love you. Please come back to me." I rolled my eyes and started walking away from him. "Go away, weirdo! We're done!" Then he grabbed my shoulder. I shook myself free and ran away, when a car came out of nowhere and... Ugh! Yes, of course. Josh was my crazy, controlling stalker ex. So he must have taken advantage of my unconsciousness to take me back to his basement and come up with his bonkers plan. Then to make things even easier for him, I ended up with memory loss. Typical! It was a nightmare. But thankfully, it's over now. The cops took my statement, and soon after that, my family came to pick me up. They all burst out crying, and we hugged each other tightly. It's taking a while to get back to normal life after all the trauma, but I'm getting there. I do want to vomit whenever I hear anyone say the word puppy. Ugh. However, this didn't stop me from getting my own rescue dog, Lily the Corgi, and I never put bows in her fur. As for Josh, well, he was convicted for false imprisonment and has to stay in jail for 4 years. Who's in the cage now? Serves you right.